Welcome to another episode of Sports and Discourse with your host, Derek Stevenson. And today I got my guy, Andrew Murrell, on the line with me. What up, family?
Yes, sir. What's good, my dog?
Hey,
Glad to
man,
be here.
listen,
Thanks for having me.
no doubt, man. I appreciate it, man. So, man, we got to jump straight into it, man. So, listen, Brian Flores, right? So, he's currently suing the NFL and several teams. I think it's Miami, Denver, and the New York Giants, right?
Yep.
And basically, he is claiming like sort of what would we call it? Would we call it basically a discrimination?
It's discrimination basically in the hiring process, the firing process, the whole 9 yards basically.
Right. So the first thing that basically set this off was he is claiming that he was asked by upper management to basically start tanking so he could get draft picks, right? Is that what you
he
heard?
said the owner, Steve Ross, or I don't know if his first name's Steve. I know his last name's Ross.
And he was allegedly he was offering him $100,000 a game, right? Is that what you heard?
Yeah, the tank. They wanted Burrow. Basically, what they were saying is that he'd give them $100,000 for every game they lost, and then towards the end of the season, when they beat my Eagles and they beat a couple other teams, said the management got pissed at him basically and did not wasn't happy with him, and basically he said that's what led to him being fired, because after that he had 2 straight winning seasons. Dolphins ain't done that in probably about 10-15 years.
Right. And man, that's crazy to me because like I understand like if you're having a middle of the pack season to below, I understand feeling like tanking would be the best option for you, right? Because if you're not going to make the playoffs, or if you make the playoffs but you really don't have a shot of winning the Super Bowl, it's better to just really have the number 1 pick, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, that's what they were saying about the Eagles this year, is that, us making the playoffs actually hurt us or whatever, because we could have got a better draft pick. I like Flores' comments on it, though. When he was on Get Up this morning, he said, not in his DNA. He would never, ever, not ever. And I feel that. And then as Hugh Jackson came out and said, they did the same thing to him in Cleveland, basically promoted for him to lose games, get a higher draft pick for a player they wanted. And then when they fired him, they used his record as a reason. And, when he goes to apply for a new job, that record gets looked at. And, if you're tanking for money or to help out ownership or to try not to rock the boat, you're almost self-sabotaging your career. Look at Hugh Jackson. He hasn't gotten a head coaching job since the Browns.
Right, yeah. And where's he at currently? Is he at Grambling?
I don't know if he's a head coach. I think he might be an assistant or a coordinator or something somewhere. I'm not sure where he went. Found out today, Marvin Lewis, I guess, is at Arizona State, because they got him on, and he told that story about the Panthers, where they hired John Fox. And he said he saw it on ESPN. He's sitting there watching the TV, and they're talking about hiring John Fox on Friday. That same night, he gets a call from his agent saying the Panthers want to interview him. And he said, "What do you mean?" So they called the Panthers, and the Richardsons, I think is who owns them, assured them that there was, no, they hadn't decided yet. They weren't sure. And then, turned around and they interviewed him. I think he said on Thursday, and then Friday, the day they were supposed to, they turned around and hired John Fox. So he's, to me, it's sad that he, in 2022, that he has to bring a class action lawsuit against them. But I'm so glad he did. Hopefully he'll still be able to get a job, especially in the NFL. The man's bred to be a coach. I thought it was stupid that the Dolphins fired him anyways. And now you're kind of learning why. Joe Burrow is getting ready to be in the Super Bowl, who they wanted him to tank for, and they're sitting there with Tua out of the playoffs. So they're saying that validates or whatever, but I can't vibe with that. I can't get down with it.
And let me ask you this question, right? So if it's proven true that in fact he did offering money to Tank, do you think
Mm.
that they should force him to sell the team?
Yeah, I think they should Donald Sterling him for real. If it's found out, I mean, because so I know at least in the NBA, because of things like tanking, there's competitive balance rule where they're like, they're overseeing, and when they can tell that that's what you're doing, you can get fined or even lose your draft pick that you were trying to get for it. So I think they're probably going to have to put some rules in for that. And then honestly, as it's been said round and around on the sports shows all day, it's got to be the changes in ownership, and for lack of a better term, my skin folks, who need to step up and start saying something. And I will say, I agree with something my dog Andrew Crawford said. I think Bill was calculated with that text message to him, because Bill calculated with everything else. Like I mentioned to my boss earlier, I think he just probably said, I'm tired of this shit. Flores is one of his guys. And what better way basically to lead through the door, because now he's got text messages, he's got proof. Plus, like they said this morning, all the data points to it. I mean, when they instituted the Rooney Rule, you had 3 black head coaches: Marvin Lewis, Mike Tomlin, and Jim Caldwell, I think was the third one. Now, the only black head coach in the league is Mike Tomlin. So what's the Rooney Rule done besides giving an interview, a sham interview to minorities?
Right.
And just to satisfy and appease, because they already know who they're going to hire. You keep hearing about this now that this has come out. And it's just, I mean, to me, it's what we feared all along when they instituted the rule. What they were going to do is, you can't tell a billionaire what to do, especially if and those billionaires are paying Goodell. I think Goodell will escape this one, but they got to get rid of Ross. If this is found true, if it is any bit true that he was offering to pay for that, and then fired him over it, obviously, subsequently, a couple years later, he's got to go.
So let me
the messed up thing, I'm sorry to add one more thing. The messed up thing is they were talking about this Ross cat is like one of the initiative directors, one of the owners that helped start competitive or like racial balance, or he's basically on the initiative to help, or says he is. And I think it's another one of those instances where you see somebody throwing some money at something, hoping it'll go away. Right. We'll see if that happens with Hugh, or with my guy Flores.
That's crazy, man. So I had heard, I think it might be like 14 black head coaches in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And right now, like you said, we down to 1, but Byron Leftwich will make number 2, right?
Right. But and hopefully, if Houston's smart, they'll hire all the bad PR Houston's gotten over Deshaun and how he's been done, and now how they did David Culley after 1 season. I think they could wipe some of that egg off their face if they give it. That's one of the 2 jobs he's still in for, is y'all to stand up and say, you know what, we're gonna hire him anyways. That's what we want, is somebody who's going to sacrifice himself for the good of others. That's a leader of men.
So what do you think the difference is? Why do you think that NBA franchises are more willing, it seems, to hire black head coaches?
It's more of a player-driven league. I mean, let's look at it from the perspective of, LeBron's special, one of the greatest ever to play the game, but it's well known he's picking the coaches basically since Mike Brown's been his coach. They fired that dude from Europe or overseas, David. I can't remember his name
David
anymore.
Blatt.
Yeah, David Bland, and got Ty Lue in there. And right now it looks like they're about to get Vogel out before too long. And, Tisdale will be the one that takes over that. That's his man that he's basically coaching the team already. And I think that's partially why the players have more input. And flat out, the players aren't going to play for dudes. If you remember what happened when they found out about Donald Sterling, the Clippers said they weren't going to play until he was gone. So the NBA had no choice, Yeah. And when you got these teams that are 70% African-American, man, and the white players too, they just need to stand up and say, no, we're not going to play.
Yeah, man. So I guess I would ask you, because you touched on it a little bit earlier. You said you hope that he is able to continue coaching, right? Mm-hmm. But I want to ask you this. Do you feel like this will have a negative effect going forward? And why I'm asking is because like, I guess it's going to put some of these organizations in a position where, like, let's say they hire a black coach, right?
Mhm.
And now they feel like he just wasn't able to get the job done. Or maybe we can even look at like Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati, right? So he was there for like how many years?
16, I think,
Right.
which
And
surprised me. I didn't realize it was that long.
yeah. So do you think that maybe they was afraid to fire him because of the backlash that they might receive?
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, at the same time, Marvin Lewis, it's like that's why that he got the Bengals job, is because here we'll give you. And I mean, if you ain't noticed, it's when have you seen a black head coach take over a situation like Minnesota, where they're maybe just a few players or coach away from being a Super Bowl contender? Um, I think it's almost a setup in certain situations. I mean, you look at the ones that have been here recently. David Culley, I mean, that was a setup. They obviously brought him in to try to get Watson to stay. That didn't work out. I mean, he did well with what they had, and he's still gone after 1 year. So what was the problem? Did they want him to tank and he wouldn't do it? So they fired him. I think that's the NFL is still more I mean, to just be completely honest, it's closer to slavery. I mean, I know they're getting paid millions of dollars, so you have to watch what you say when it's like that. Um, but I mean, the owners still hold all the cards. They can ruin your career in 1 minute. It doesn't matter. The only thing that hurts them is guaranteed money. Everything else they can get right out of that with just by cutting you, just releasing you. So I think and that was a good point that me and my boss were talking about earlier. I think when you see it become more player driven, from where players are making decisions and forcing their way out, like you see a lot in the NBA when they're unhappy in their situations. I mean, look at the Texans. They let JJ Watt go scot free, gave him what he wanted, but they wouldn't give it to D Watson. I mean, Hop wanted out for years before they finally let him out. It's so much of a, we own you, we're going to control you, and if you don't bark when we say bark, then we'll get rid of you and we'll blackball you from the league. And they got a list of candidates that they can say they've done it to.
Right. And that actually leads me to another topic that I want to get to with you, since you said it's kind of a setup, right? So let
Mm-hmm.
me ask you this, because basically that is how I kind of look at it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's almost, it almost kind of takes away some of their dignity, right? Because you have these coaches and it's kind of like they got to go and beg for a job, right?
Absolutely.
But the job that you begging for is not really a great job at the time.
Exactly.
Like, even like, let's take Leftwich for example, right? He he was in a situation where he just won a Super Bowl
Mm-hmm.
and he had a chance to run it back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It didn't work out, but he had a shot.
Right.
So in order for him to seize his opportunity to be a head coach, he goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which
Right.
is kind of a bare situation. Like, he goes to a situation where
They got talent, but it don't know how to win, and it's all young.
it's all young. It's probably going to be
2 to 3 years, unless they get lucky like the Bengals.
but
It'll take some time.
but that's even if they allow him to have a leash long enough to get to the third
They
year.
don't fire him after the first year, that he goes 4-12.
Right. So what I want to ask you is, why don't you think some of these black coaches consider going the NCAA route? And this is why I'm asking you this. With the transfer portal
Mm-hmm.
and the name, image, and likeness, I feel like a top-notch black head coach could build a championship caliber team way quicker and way easier than they can in the NFL. If you look at like what Coach Prime is doing down there, he's getting transfers from bigger schools, he's getting top-notch recruits. And then that way, when you build up a program like that, then some of these NFL, owners will come, or these general managers will come and beg you to take the job instead of you
Right.
begging them to give you an opportunity.
Right. So I could be completely wrong, but I'll tell you this. I don't think that they've ever hired a single coach from the college ranks that was African American. Um, David Shaw has been at Stanford for a while and done really well. He's just one of the many names that I know. I honestly, I think it boils down to it's that old guard. And man, I saw it was on Twitter, and it was like they were talking to I don't know if you saw it either. They were talking to an owner. It was baseball related. I don't know if he was the owner or what he was, but they were sitting down there and they were talking to him about why there wasn't more black managers in the sports or general managers. And he basically, without repeating the crap that he said, he stopped everything and saying that y'all weren't smart enough to be a coach. And then one of the final things he said before they cut him off was, "How many black pitchers do you see?" Now, obviously, that's changed. "How many black quarterbacks do you see?" Now, obviously, that's changed a lot too.
Right.
But I think it's more of a when they do it, it's an image thing. Just like with Ross, with this situation, with him not only hiring Flores the way he did him, but then him being on the initiative for change platform, racial equality, I think is what they said he was the initiative of. And that's, man, that's where it falls down to the owners. If you look at the NFL offices with Troy Vincent, gosh, you could start naming all kinds of players. They're very diverse in the NFL front offices, as far as the organization of the NFL goes. Now, when you get in and you dive into this ownership, that's where, I mean, let's put it all the way real. When have the Cowboys ever hired a black coach? It took forever for them to get a black quarterback that they would pay. Now, they had Quincy Carter, and Quincy Carter kind of did his.
Well, anyways, it doesn't look like I'm gonna be able to get my guy back on the line, so I'm gonna just close it out on my own. So basically, what I was getting at was I feel like a lot of these black head coaches should probably look into seeing about the college route, man. Because if you look at the pay is coming up for a lot of top notch collegiate coaches. You look at like Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh, and they making the same amount or more than a lot of NFL head coaches. So at the end of the day, I feel like if you was to go to, you know, a Power Five conference college program, build it up, you probably would have more longevity. Your job security would be a whole lot safer. You would probably have more opportunity to win and dominate at the college level. And if you ever decided to go to the NFL, you would probably have more leverage and it could be on your terms. Like you could have, better options for where you decide you want to coach at instead of just taking whatever bottom level job is available at that time. Like you could look at like a Mike Tomlin situation where he came into a situation where he actually had some decent players on the team. He had guys that knew how to win. He had up and coming talented players. He had solid defenders. He had leaders. He already had a franchise quarterback. Um, so he kind of he came into a situation where he was able to grow as a head coach and learn, how to lead a program with a whole lot better situation than most of these other guys go into. So you know, I would I like to see more head coaches, go along those lines, man, and instead of begging for these NFL jobs because at the end of the day, um, it's really disappointing to see that these organizations, even though, they employ, 80% of their players, are African American, they still really don't want to give too many, upper management and head coaching opportunities to African Americans. And it's pretty disappointing that they have to, have a rule that even requires them to even, interview two of each. So, they have to interview two minority coaches and two minority executive um, outside of their franchise. So it can't even be somebody in their organization. But a lot of the times, it's just it's just lip service. They already have the candidate picked out. They already know exactly who they're going to hire, and maybe have even already made the deal. And then they just, continue to waste a couple more people's time just to jump through the hoops. And it's pretty disappointing. But hopefully, with Bill Belichick helping Flores to expose this, man, maybe something can be done about it. Um, maybe they can force some kind of change. And it's kind of hard, to tell somebody who to employ. Um, but hopefully some can be done. And one thing that worries me is that Flores may have made the ultimate sacrifice. He might end up never becoming a head coach in the NFL again. And but hopefully, if that is what happens, hopefully it'll at least open doors for some other people, so it won't all be in vain. Um, because I'd hate to see him, end up in a situation kind of like Colin Kaepernick, where pretty much once he took his stand against the NFL, he was out of there. And a lot of people are, they're probably too afraid to take the stand, because at the end of the day, they want to be head coaches in the NFL. And I understand why, because it's just, it's about the prestige and the ego. You want to coach an NFL team. You want to be a Super Bowl championship coach. Like, I understand. But anyways, I just, I'm gonna have to keep my eye on things and see how this plays out, and see how this lawsuit goes. But hopefully, at the end of all this, things that need to be corrected will at least be moving in the right direction, and some progress will be made. And that's it, man. We'll see. Sports and Discourse, Derek Stevenson.